In a few seconds, I hear the door open. You know when a door opens and somebody's really pissed off? That was the door. My mother comes rolling through the house like a freight train, and she stops in the doorway. She's looking around the table in the dining room. She sees me, points her finger at me. You, get up.
Welcome to Bear It All, the Kintsugi Chronicles, here on the I Am Not Okay channel, where we gather our broken pieces in search of gold. My name is John Bear, this is MJ Bear, and that's Holly Bear. MJ, take it away.
Listen, I'm here today, you guys. We have to talk about the past. The past, what's happened to me, what's happened to you guys, what happened to Tony, has informed where we are today. It's time that we get our shit together. So I want to ask you guys a question, first of all. What do you know about my life as a kid?
I knew that you grew up and you had two older sisters. You were the third in line. You had a younger sister. Mm-hmm. I know that you grew up in Lansdale. I knew that you were born in Ambler. And I know that your childhood was challenging. I just don't necessarily know why, or maybe the depth of that. And yeah, I would like to understand where you came from, because it would probably help me understand where I come from.
I suspect it's going to help all of us. Look, I'm old, obviously. So I've been around the block with this nonsense. So I want to start, first of all, for both of you. And I want to apologize for the mistakes I've made in the past. I want to answer questions that either of you have with regard to these issues. And we've never done this before. It is hard for me. I'm sorry, but it is.
No, it's okay.
I've been estranged from my family now for, I want to say, close to 40 years. For me, all of this began, believe it or not, in 1984. Do you know anything about the novel 1984?
I mean, I had to read it in school.
Okay, H.G. Wells.
Hey, Ma, it was George Orwell. Have a little more coffee next time, okay? All right.
Yeah, I understand the concept.
Dystopian totalitarianism.
Yeah.
That was what I grew up with, John. There was no option in my world growing up other than what my father deemed appropriate. My father was a cop, ultimately a police chief. Do you know where Poppy and Mimi came from?
I know Poppy grew up in Norristown, and did Mimi grow up in Ambler, or was that
Ambler,
Norristown?
but do you know what their lives were like?
Not
Have I
really.
ever talked about any of that?
Not really, no.
Okay. Briefly as I can make it, my parents were both born into abject poverty. They were different types of people, but they had a very similar upbringing. My father was born in 1934. And from the time he was born until the time he decided to join law enforcement, he spent his life being abused, not only by his family, but by society at large. And the reason, my father was born out of wedlock. In 1934, that was a fate worse than death. As a result, Poppy was abused by society for his mother's transgressions. He became a cop in part because he wanted to be respected. That was his impetus to begin with.
Yeah.
And back in the mid-50s, late 50s, becoming a cop was automatic respect. The uniform garnered respect. It was a time in our history, social history, where deference to authority was something every family strived for. So my father put on the uniform, and he immediately got respect as a cop. But somehow or another, over the years, it became twisted and torqued, and my father wanted, no, he didn't want, he demanded respect. If Poppy said to me once growing up, "You may not always love me, and you may not always like me, but you will respect me." That was my father in a nutshell. It was absolutely what's the word?
Totalitarianism?
Totalitarianism within my household. For some reason, I know I haven't said anything about my mother. Mimi also grew up in poverty. Her father died when she was 10. So Nana, my grandmother, worked in a grocery store. It was difficult for them. How these two people met and had children is beyond me, because their families were so similar. It's weird. My father's mother lived with her mother all her life, okay? My father's mother lived with her daughters all her life. My mother lived with her mother all her life. Do we see a little pattern going on here?
Yeah.
This is control. These people want to control their children. And in fact, my mother did say to me once, Grandmom would keep Jeannie obese. My aunt was very obese. And it was because my grandmother was cooking all of the meals she wanted, bringing her everything she wanted, so she'd be too heavy to have a life of her own. You can't get much more controlling than that. My father was just as controlling. Do you have any questions yet at this point?
No, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on what I think, like, the controlling and why I think maybe they were, some of that could have been those generational patterns passed down to them,
Absolutely.
too. So
Absolutely, I
think
agree.
They most likely were controlled and abused.
Absolutely.
And that wheel just kept rolling downhill, which is why we're here, because we're
That's
attempting
why we're
to
here.
break
That's
it.
exactly right. And the
Okay.
problem is, in my family and my former husband's family, is the fact that they never stopped with the abuse. The abuses they perpetrated on their kids, me and my sisters, they also perpetrated upon their grandchildren. You, Holly, Tony, the other kids.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you how horrifying that is. This is generational abuse that's being passed down from my grandparents to my parents, to us, to your generation, and now we have a fifth generation who will be growing up the same way, at least my sisters. But the reason I want to talk about this today is, as a result of all of this abuse, my father was a bastard. I don't know how else to put it. Okay?
Like, literally a bastard or a bastard to you?
A bastard
Both.
to me.
Okay.
think.
Okay. I just
Well,
want
bastard is the term
was
that would have been
literally a
used.
You said earlier
No,
that
no.
he was born
I'm
out of
just
wedlock.
saying
So.
He was. I'm just saying there was no room for growth. There was no room for individuality.
Yeah.
As I said, everything revolved around deference
Yeah.
and putting on the public charm offensive. You needed to look a certain way in public. You needed to sound a certain way. Everybody had to be the same. Your goal in life was to look like the guy right next to you or the girl right next to you, okay? Everybody had to be the same. Any individuality was beat out of you. My father, on one hand, is this hard-nosed cop. You remember,
I do.
okay?
Yeah.
You remember, right?
No. I
You don't remember Poppy being,
I was too young.
really?
When he was a cop, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm just talking about his persona after he retired.
Well, yeah, and I was, the third to last grandkid, right? I'm
Wait.
the youngest out of John and Tony, and
Yeah.
then there was
Monica.
Serena and Austin were younger than me.
Oh, right, Serena. I keep forgetting about Serena.
So, yes, I think it was the older grandkids that got the brunt of it, but yes, he was still an asshole to me.
Is that your experience, John? Do you agree?
My experience of Poppy, I remember him as a cop, so I do remember that. I believe, was it 93 or 94 when he retired?
96.
Okay, so yeah, I was old enough. I was like 14 or 15 when he retired. So I remember him being the chief of police. I remember going and visiting him at that office there. And I vaguely remember the parades you know, like
Right,
so going
that's
down
right. He
Main
was the lead
Street.
car.
He was the lead
And
car.
you, Jimmy, and Kate would be in the squad car with him.
Yeah, I was probably what 3, 4, like little, but like 4
Yeah,
or
little
5
girl,
sort
little
of.
guy. I remember
like
that
I
too.
just remember sort of the hoopla around it, not like what it was or anything like that. As far as him, like I think it evolved later in life. I wanted to believe that he was a leader and he had my best interest at hand, and maybe sometimes he did. But over the years and kind of unraveling the onion of Poppy, I've learned like he was human and he had his faults, and he was really challenging, and it was more, we'll say, dictatorial than it was collaborative, right? And I didn't. It was more like, you're going to do what I tell you to do because I tell you to do it, versus, hey, do you want to go do this thing because it's a good thing to do, and let's learn how to do it. And I personally learned that I rebel against that. I don't do very well with people telling me what to do, and maybe that's a part of my upbringing. We'll unpack that over time. But I believe, as I've learned as I got older, when you show somebody the way versus do as I say, not as I do, then you actually get compliance, and then things start to happen. And so what I learned from Poppy is I didn't like the way that he treated me, and I didn't want to treat others that way.
Do you remember when you came to me?
When?
Poppy somehow roped you into doing yard work?
At Jeannie's?
Yes.
So I was like 16 years old?
Yes. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Why don't you tell the story?
Well, the story very simply is, somehow or another, you got roped into doing yard work with Poppy. By the way, that's what we did when we were kids.
Right.
What Poppy did to you that day is exactly what I grew up with. Evidently, you weren't working fast enough, or you took a break. I can't recall exactly what those details were. But Poppy came over and started screaming at you.
Yeah.
Telling you what a lazy son of a bitch you are. You're just like your father. You're a ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Yeah, I don't think I worked fast enough, or I just didn't do it the way he wanted, or I just kind of was lazy about it, but like in a 15-year-old teenage kind of way.
And he came after you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's only half the story. You came to me. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I said, Ma, I told you what happened.
Right.
I said something to the effect that I was working with Poppy, and we were over there helping Jeannie, and he had Jimmy doing stuff and me doing, like even Jimmy doing stuff, right? So like, and then he came over to me and he got right in my face and he pointed his finger at me. And he's like, you're going to be a lazy piece of shit, just like your father. And I was just like taken aback. I don't remember what I did after that. I finished, did whatever I had to do, and then came home and told you. And you said something to the effect, I'm going to paraphrase, I could be wrong, but it was like, oh, that's like Poppy being Poppy. And I said, no, Mom, that was wrong. That was not right. And I didn't know how, I knew how to say that, or had to have the gumption to say it to you, but maybe I felt at least a little bit safe with you to say that. But it felt wrong. And I didn't know how to else to say that. And I knew that that wasn't the way that things were supposed to be. That's all I can tell you.
You're exactly right. When you came and told me what happened, before the last word was out of your mouth, because I'm still now under the influence of that red pill, the family red pill. You didn't even finish talking, and I said, oh, that's just Poppy. That's just the way he is.
Yeah.
It was you that started this ball rolling for me to begin to understand that, wait a minute, I've been accepting this abuse all my life because I thought that's the only way it can be.
So you saw your kid getting abused, and that opened you.
That lit the fire.
That opened your conscious mind.
That
So,
lit the fire. So let me tell you one other thing, both of you. The proudest moment in my life as a mother is when my kids, the first time you did this, all three of you, had the courage to come to me and say, Mom, this happened, or Mom, I think you're wrong, and this is why. I've never been prouder when you have the integrity and the courage to face me and say, look, I think you're wrong, and here's why. I know I've told you this in the past, but I can't emphasize how proud I am that you had, these are your convictions, and you're willing to stand by them regardless of who you're talking to. It took me an entire lifetime to be able to get to that point, and I'm not even sure I'm there yet.
Well, why do you think then that we had the ability to have these convictions and it's taken maybe you so long?
I do think part of it is society and the way the schools handle these kinds of things today versus what they did when I was a kid.
Okay.
I couldn't go to a teacher or a guidance counselor and say, my father is hitting me, or my father's abusing me, or my mother's doing this. In my day, going to a teacher or the guidance counselor, a doctor, anyone, the first thing they're going to do is contact your parents. There was nothing in terms of support for children. I couldn't pick up a telephone and say I need help. I couldn't go to the police. My father was the police.
Yeah.
He's abusing his children. It never was just me, by the way. Okay? I need you both to understand that. The abuse was perpetrated upon all of us in the family. Okay? We've all been abused. And I'm talking about every generation. Crucially, though, we've all abused other members of our families.
Yes.
By virtue of the way we've been brought up. Okay? So it's a double-edged sword where we're being abused and we're replicating that abuse because we take it out on our little kids or our younger kids, our cousins. We do it to each other because that's how we learned to interact with each other.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
And again, I haven't said much about my mother because my mother is like a black hole to me. I've never had a relationship with my mother, much less a good relationship. My mother has said two things all my life, and I still don't necessarily understand what she meant other than there's something wrong with me. And the two things are simply this. Whenever she was mad at my father, I'm her proxy for Poppy. She would take it out on me. You're just like your father. You're your father's daughter. And would just shut me down as if I didn't exist. In fact, that's what she did in 1984. My parents are getting a divorce, and I've told this story 100 times. I'm talking to my sister on the phone one night. I said, hey, let's have a anniversary party for Mom and Dad. It's her 25th. And she said to me, I don't think that's a good idea. And I said, why? They're getting a divorce.
You didn't know?
I didn't know anything. Nothing. I don't remember the conversation after that.
Yeah.
What I do recall, I didn't speak to anybody in that family until my parents said, we want to talk to all of the kids. We went to Mimi's house. Poppy came in first, gave his spiel about why they're getting a divorce. I'll tell you about why later. And then he was supposed to leave, and Mimi would come in and talk to her kids. I'm sitting at the table. My sisters are sitting at the table. Poppy leaves. In a few seconds, I hear the door open. Do you know when a door opens and somebody's really pissed off? That was the door. My mother comes rolling through the house like a freight train, and she stops in the doorway. She's looking around the table in the dining room. She sees me, points her finger at me. You, get up. Get out of my house. I have nothing to say to you. You're your father's daughter. It was like a perfectly choreographed dance. Nobody said a word. Not me, not my sisters. I get up, get my purse. I look at my sisters. They're all looking at the damn floor.
Of course.
Like they're interested in their shoes all of a sudden. They don't want to look at me. The only thing I could do was walk out of the house in shock. I didn't know what the hell happened.
Yeah.
From that point, John, it's been nothing but abusive, estrangement, ostracizing, interfering in our lives. It's been a nightmare. Now we're going to take that, couple it with the fact that Poppy would abuse his authority by obtaining information that only police officers have access to. And he would use that for personal reasons. My father had a file on everyone that he considered an adversary, okay? Poppy considered people objects, things, and you fell into one of three categories. You're either an asset, that's somebody who can offer Poppy something that he wants. He's happy as a clam if he's getting a discount on this or a freebie on that or blah, blah, blah. Assets. That's people who can offer Poppy something. As a result of that, Poppy will do favors for these people. And I'm talking about people with something he really wants, whether it was a piece of ass or a discount or a freebie. If you had something to offer Poppy, he'd gladly get your kid out of trouble. He'll gladly squash the ticket, the citation, whatever the hell it was, as long as he was getting something in return. These are the assets. Every asset in Poppy's life had the potential to become a liability. These are the people who have nothing to offer Poppy anymore. But they're also not giving him grief. They're not causing him any problem. Poppy knows every liability has the potential to become an adversary. And these are the people who fly too close to the sun. These are the people who try to go up against Poppy because they know he was doing something underhanded or he's taking a bribe here or this there, okay? Those are the people Poppy would keep a file on, which means everyone in Poppy's life who made an impact he collected information on these people, data. He thought he was like J. Edgar Hoover, keeping all the secrets so that nobody can take Jim down, okay? So...
Did he retire on his own?
I'm not sure.
Or was he forced to retire?
I
Do you think all of this kind of caught up with him in the end?
I do.
Okay.
I do. He was having difficulty in the end with borough council. He was constantly bucking heads,
I did wonder that.
locking horns with
'Cause,
borough
it kind of
council.
comes to that.
Well, Dad even told a story one time that Poppy, there was a borough council meeting or something, and Poppy went in with his vest on his back. So, like, he had a life vest or, a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
But he only had the back plates in. And he said, the only reason I come in here with my back plates is because none of you will shoot me in the chest. You'll all shoot me in the back.
Oh.
And Dad was even, like, impressed with that. That's one story that I remember. So that's interesting.
But that was the game my father played. Yes, he locked horns with borough council like nobody's business. I understand part of it is he was a police chief at that point. It was his responsibility to make sure his men had what they needed. That I understand. But my father always did it in such an adversarial way. He'd go in, and like you said, with the bulletproof vest just to be an asshole and prove a point.
In some positions, that's kind of needed, and that can be a tough position as a position of leadership. However, I get what you're saying.
Come on, it was a rinky-dink town.
That not to them, I guess, right? Like, and not to other people that live in quote-unquote rinky-dink towns. Not everybody lives in big cities.
I don't know. I think Poppy was a drama queen in that way.
Okay, well, we
you.
don't know him that way.
Yeah.
So like
I know him that way.
Okay, so... And was it for him to get attention and let everybody know that he was in charge?
Yes.
You think that was the...
That was absolutely it.
Okay.
Okay? What the hell else did I want to tell you about my parents?
Tell us about Mimi. You've kind of talked a lot about Poppy. Like, you've said she's this big black hole and that she told you to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Like, did you feel like you even had a mom? Like, or were you like a motherless daughter?
I don't have a lot of memories of my mother growing up. I really don't. And that's not to say she was always up my ass or
Right.
being a pain in my ass.
Yeah.
It was more along the lines of I only existed to my mother when I was pissing her off. Do you know what I mean?
Did you have a better relationship with Poppy then? Because growing up, I mean, you tend to lean towards one parent. And I think...
I was
And I'm
terrified of my father.
But did you spend time with him more than you spent time with your mom? You have a
Yeah,
lot
I had
more
no
memories
choice. I had no choice.
of your dad. Like me, I think John and Tony, you were our parent. You know what I mean? We didn't want to willingly hang out with our dad.
Not necessarily. Not at that time.
I can't say that I blame you.
Well, but can you see?
I was just asking about your mom.
Yeah.
To see
My
if,
mom?
every kid has a parent, whether they're terrified
Well,
of them or not,
Tony Robbins would tell you which parent did you seek love from the most? For me, it was Dad, because I knew I had your love. And when I look back on my life, I can look at how I played football and I did a lot of things to try and get Dad's love, because I
Yes.
guess I didn't subconsciously feel like I had it.
Right.
What parent did you do that? Who did you try to get love from? Do you remember?
I didn't try to get love from Poppy,
Okay.
but I did spend more time with Poppy.
Okay.
In my family,
Yeah.
it was always this weird, 2 kids stayed with my mother. If my father had to go do something,
Okay.
2 would go with him. My mother would send the kids because, I guess I didn't say this at first, my father was never faithful to my mother.
Okay. That's something
Ever faithful to my mother.
we could learn from, I guess.
My parents lied from the very beginning of their relationship, and it never stopped.
Well, there's a good segue. Didn't you tell me that they had Tina, they fudged something so that like they were
Yes.
Married.
Go ahead, tell that story.
Well, first of all, Poppy was married when he met my mother.
Okay.
Somehow or another, my saintly mother, the one that sits at the right hand of God,
Okay.
suddenly is getting married to my father at the courthouse in 1959.
Yeah.
Who the hell does that? She was a first-generation Italian-American Catholic girl. And she's getting married at the courthouse. There was only one reason to get married at the courthouse then.
pregnant.
Mimi was pregnant with the twins. What they did was they got married in February. The twins were born in September. And they decided to tell the world that the twins were born exactly 2 months premature. Later on in life, I guess I was in my mid-40s, early 40s. And Poppy finally admitted, excuse me, that Mimi was pregnant when they got married. That revelation changed a hell of a lot for me. I spent my high school years being threatened by my mother that I would be pregnant before I got married. And if I got pregnant before I got married, I'm disowned. At the time, I didn't know my mother was the one that was pregnant when she got married. She's projecting what she did onto me. And then she does it to my sisters. My mother dripped poison in everybody's ear. Okay? She's driving the wedge between every member of her family, her children, her spouse, her sisters, everyone. My mother's just dripping poison. And let me ask you guys a question. Did Mimi do that when you were young?
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, did she complain about the other grandchildren to you?
No, but she definitely tried to make us all the same person, like she did with you and your sisters. So everyone was the same. But I got the same, you're going to be pregnant by the time you're 15 from your sisters.
Andrea, the same words.
Yeah.
The same words.
Yep.
Now we have to add to that. There was one of us that was pregnant when we got married. It wasn't me. Do you know who it was?
I don't.
Dee Dee?
Saint Tina.
Oh. No, I didn't know that.
Tina followed in my parents' footsteps. This is intergenerational, okay? She literally followed in their footsteps. They got married February 7th. 21 years later, she gets married February 2nd. They both get married outside of church, even though these are the two that spent the most time going to church. The two really good Catholic girls, civil ceremonies. Tina gets married in the living room, Mayor Mike D'Annunzio presiding. I had no idea. One day I come home, suddenly she's planning a wedding.
Both born in August? Both of her kids?
Yeah.
Okay. I was doing the math.
I come home from work one day, and all of a sudden we're planning a wedding. 6 weeks later, she's walking down the steps, late to her own wedding, I might add, in the living room.
most brides are.
to get married. But I didn't know she was pregnant. I'm her sister. I didn't know she was pregnant. I'm fairly certain the other family members did. The pattern here is the exclusion. Okay? Remember I said I didn't know my parents were getting a divorce?
Yeah.
So you were like the black sheep.
I was always the black sheep. My mother always told me I was the black sheep.
So
Always.
did you find yourself taking that on and living that way then?
Oh, I'm sure I did. It had to be some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay. Well,
Don't you think?
Thank you for making it this far in our show. If you're feeling overwhelmed, that's okay. Just know that you're not alone, that we're here with you, and we're going to work through this together. If you need some help or assistance, dial 988 or head over to our website, www.iamnotok.com, www.iamnotok.com for a space where you can breathe. And if you want to send us an email and let us know how you're doing, we can get back to you as soon as we can and make sure that you're on the right path. Now, back to the show.
Well, because I believe that's how a lot of those patterns get made in the beginning. I believe even as little kids, you know, between like 0 and 7, we're able to take in a lot of information, but like not consciously understand it.
Right.
But we're still making decisions based on the information that's coming in. Like, I knew how to shut up and be quiet when people were angry in the house, because if I didn't, then I would get smacked. But I didn't know how to verbalize that. I just knew to shut up.
Oh, I
and
did
so
the same
those
thing.
patterns get really deep-seated from a young age.
And you probably learned it from me. I did the same thing.
I learned it from my environment, and Mimi and Poppy and Graham and Pop and Dad and you and everybody, all the cousins and everybody were in our family. So there's tentacles to all of that. So for me, like, I can see, because I wanted to understand, like, especially after we lost Tony, like, why would he choose to go and do what he did versus choose to understand and maybe figure out how to not do that, how to not take his own life, how to live. And that's, I believe, a big part of what I'm doing is like understanding, like, where these patterns came from, why we make decisions, how we even like get to the point of feeling so overwhelmed, but we don't understand it. Because that's how I felt a lot of my life was. Up until 16, 18 years old, I felt like a complete mute that was constantly keeping like a clamp on everything in my life. And, you know, as I got a little bit older and grew up and a little further into things, and then we lost Tony, man, that clamp that broke, and then all that energy came out, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I'm still reining it in. And I think that's a big part of like why we're all sitting here today, is because when that happened, I went left, Holly went right, you went straight, and we were connecting again, but our pieces were sort of boop. And so understanding how those patterns took place and were seated in the beginning, and then like now that we've taken a step back and we're coming back together, like what have we learned from going through that to not perpetuate it? That's what I saw.
Well, I think we all need to understand, all of us. I need to understand where you guys are coming from. You know, things happened when you were younger that I have no idea
Fair enough.
that were going on. So you do have some issues with me. I'm sure you do, right?
Probably all parents, or all kids with parents. But yeah.
And that's fine. You're supposed to have issues and conflict. That's part of the human condition.
Yeah.
How we deal with this conflict is what makes or breaks our relationships.
Yes.
We're not dealing with it.
Agreed.
You weren't allowed to deal with it with Brad. I wasn't allowed to deal with it in my family.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. You couldn't deal with it because you didn't know what the hell was going on. You were the youngest. I was as screwed up, Jesus, as anyone most of my life. Most of my life. I'm not so sure I'm still screwed up. Let's put it that way.
You think you're still screwed up?
Yeah, I do.
I think that you say that shows that you're unscrewing the screw. So
I hope
Yeah.
I'm unscrewing it.
I think there's more like you're probably becoming aware of the things that happened. So if you're saying, yeah, I'm screwed up, well, then everybody's screwed up because we all have had parents and we all have had somebody do something in our environment that wasn't to our best interest, and it affected us. So I can understand that you're traumatized and hurt and in pain. I don't see you as screwed up. I see you, especially when you say things like that, because you're aware of it. And I think that's the awareness is a
honey.
big key.
Yeah, you asked me earlier why I can just tell people or kind of just be like, fuck it, fuck them, whatever.
I told you that's a quality I absolutely admire in
Right.
you guys.
But my point on saying that is your sisters,
Who?
your sisters.
Who?
Stop. They're still your sisters.
No, they're not.
Whatever.
Okay.
Don't, because I'll leave. Your sisters stayed in that pattern of your parents. The abuse, they let their mommy tell them what to do. And you were the only one, regardless of how you got there, you were the only one to step away
Yep.
and be your own person.
Yep.
And be who you were.
Yep.
Do you see where I'm going with this? So you, even though you think you're screwed up, I know you're hurt, I know you're traumatized, I know all those things bother you, you went left while everybody's followed the pigeons.
That's
okay?
absolutely true.
So for me to sit here and be like, fuck it, I don't care, let it roll off my back, is because you started that. You started that legwork going, saying, you know what? I don't have to take this shit. I'm not gonna take this shit. Even though you're hurt, you still went that way. And you still showed us a path that we don't have to listen. We don't have to fucking sit here and, okay, yes, sir, no, sir. We don't have to do that. You paved that path for us. And I don't think you realize that.
I absolutely
You
don't realize
stood
that.
by yourself
Yeah, I did.
a lot of your life because you believed that I don't have to take this and I don't have to listen to this and I'm going to still live my life. I don't think you truly understand that. And I followed your footsteps as I got older because John started going that way and Tony was just the fuck everyone king, okay? And I was like, how do I not care what everybody thinks?
How? I really, when I
You
walk
started
away,
it,
I
is
know,
my
but when I
point.
walked away and I spent years in tears.
Yes, I know you're hurt. I'm not saying that you're not hurt, but you don't realize what you did for us because had you not, we would be following the same patterns. We would be giving in to people. We would be, yes, sir, no, sir. You got it. Even if it was tearing us apart inside, you paved that path for us. And yes, you were hurt and you were traumatized and it's taking your whole life for you to be able to sit here and talk about it. But you did that for John, for Tony, and for Holly.
It was you guys. I grew up in a house where my parents literally hated each other. They despised each other. And it was a miserable existence. And that was one thing I refused to do to my kids.
But that was one thing that you started the change for us. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I think I do.
You got beaten to the ground. You were hurt. Mom, you've cried so many tears over your lifetime. But it was always to better your children.
Yes.
And we lost Tony. But look at John. Look at me.
Look at both of you.
I have bastard children and I don't care.
And I can be a bastard. I don't care.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. Yes, society has changed. Yes, people, everything, and no one's looked at me that I care about that has been like, oh, you aren't married. Okay.
Yeah,
but I still
I've
live in
changed
a
my opinion about
household
marriage.
with my children's father, and we have a great relationship. It doesn't matter. But you started that path. And while it hurt getting to that point, you've done it where now me and John can follow or have followed, where we just throw up the 2 fucking fingers and keep it moving.
Yeah, let me take that ball. Because, Mom, I've told you recently in private, and Holly, I don't know that I've had the conversation with you, and it took me a lot of realization and time to come to this. And I was even asked recently, like, John, who are your mentors, your heroes? Who are people that you look up to? And quite frankly, I don't really look up to anybody, and I don't really have heroes, but I know the one person in my life that I could probably, I'm not even going to put you on a shelf because I don't even like that because we're human, but like, to me, understanding the story of why you left Dad and when you left, and we'll unpack that some other day.
Yes, we will.
That was when you showed me, right? Like, I was 8 or 9 years old and you left, and I was really upset then, but I've come full circle to understand you left because you were saving yourself to turn around and get financially stable and a better household, that and an environment that we could come into and actually have a shot at like some semblance of a quote unquote normal life, or like not letting those patterns just sink us. So like for me, you're the closest thing that I have to a hero because you actually gave me a shot to say fuck you. Like, and I say fuck you because you said fuck you, I'm not taking this shit anymore. Like, and maybe one day we'll go into that argument and fight that you and Dad had that you brought to my attention again that I had blacked out in my memory. But then when you brought it to my attention again and we started talking about it, I realized like that day when he was hitting me and you stepped in between him and me and I was a little kid, like that was a subconscious, like she saved me. And it took a while to get to that point, but like from there, like, and that was sort of like our way out. And it's taken us fucking 30 years, guys. Like, this has taken a long fucking time to get to this point for us to be able to say these things out loud. But like, we're fucking doing it because you started, for whatever reason, you were able to just walk away. And maybe that's what you did for us. And maybe us coming full circle and having more hold of our lives, something you can see now, the good that you did do, can help move you past that trauma you went through. That's how I see it.
I'm hoping that by talking about this and getting it out, like I said, there are things you don't know, or maybe things you've forgotten, questions that you have that you never asked. We need to do this now. We're losing ourselves.
Well, is there anything else you think me and Holly should know about Mimi or Poppy or you growing up, or kind of where you came from, or your home life and family life that would be important to us to know or to utilize or to stay away from and learn from?
No, because both of you, and Tony did too before we lost him, have very definitive ideas about who you are as a person. Both of you.
You saying me and Holly do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tony did too.
Yeah.
You know who you are. Mm-hmm. You know what you like and what you don't like. You know what you want and what you don't want. And you all have had the, I want to say, integrity to say, no, I'm not stepping over this line because I don't want to do it.
You say that as like we haven't had any issues, and like the truth is when we get pushed up against the wall, I know me and Holly, we're like, fuck you, we're not going any further. But I also know we've probably been pushed past our boundaries a lot, and we've had to learn where they are because we got pushed past them. And we're both willing, like both of us will go to the ends of the earth for anybody that we love and probably give all of ourselves to our own detriment to help other people. And that's part of losing our boundaries. And I think she and I are starting to like Holly in particular, like has had some health issues and stuff. And like, I want to make sure that she's not losing herself and losing her health, because then that affects the boys. And like, so I think on that level, and I've seen it just because
that's
like
really important too.
I didn't know how to like take care of myself. And then when I started to be able to do that based on what we went through, and I can see how much Holly takes on because she's so willing to just be like, fuck it, I can do whatever. And it does weigh on her, and that stress like can eat away. And so I want to assist her in like learning her stress management so it's not eating her, so she's channeling it and the boys learn from that, only because I learned it through what you did. And that's really the way I want to go and see how like what we've gone through can tie together and, I don't know, make something, positive out of negative. Like we'll go the Biggie route. But
I think we have a lot of positive at this point. We're here. We're doing this. We're here talking to each other. This is essentially our family counseling each other. I don't know that we can go to counseling together. We've done it.
Well,
in the
should we?
past.
Maybe we should have individual, and then this can be
Right,
our
but
space
at some
to
point
talk
in
it
the
out.
future, I think we need to discuss it. We need to discuss it. Again, because I don't think you understand everything that happened. You may have forgotten things or weren't aware of it. But all of this abuse that's been going on in our families,
Yeah.
like I said, has been passed down through the generations.
Right.
And the picture I get from this distance now, there's a clarity in walking away from the abuse and not being part of that epicenter of what's going on. So now I'm back here. I'm not part of this family. I walked away after Tony died. And again, we'll get into why I did all that. But when I walked away, I freed myself. I let myself be separated from these people. Up until that point, I never walked away from my family. My absence in my family was because I was ostracized by my family.
Okay.
I never stopped considering myself a part of my family until after we lost Tony. And I saw for the first time in decades how my family was interacting together. I hadn't been in their company all together for decades, and all at the same time for an extended period of time. I had forgotten who these people were. And when Tony died, and we were in there with all of them, John, it was like I never left. I could have been gone 1,000 years and dropped right back in the middle of that family. They were still doing the same things 22 years after Laura died.
Yeah, I know. Remember?
Yeah.
I was the first one to leave.
Yes.
Because I felt it too, and I was done.
I don't
That was the start of it
understand
for
how I
me.
forgot- Right.
That was I was fucking done.
And it was you, by the way, that came to me again and you said, I'm out of here, I'm done. What was the first thing I said to you?
No, stop. The same kind of like what you did with Poppy. You were like, nah, give him a chance.
We
It's
have to-
okay. It's
yes.
different. It's whatever. And something
I'm
told me,
embarrassed I said that.
okay, no, I don't know that you can't take it back now. I
No.
understand that you said it. But like, I think that was more like your reaction, your pattern. You wanted to believe that
Yes.
like they could change or be different. And maybe part of it too was I was so overwhelmed with emotion that I couldn't be around the same things constantly. I needed change, or I knew I was going to join Tony. I knew it. Like it was go left and die, go right and live. And I went right, and I had to. And whoop. And then Holly went right center and went her way, and you went whoop the other way. And then now here we are, and we're reconvening and kind of I have found some things that have allowed me to kind of survive and start to regain my semblance of who I am, and like really feel good about turning what happened to us into something positive and making sure that I can live a life that really, because I was hurt, I don't want to hurt people. And I know that I've hurt people. I know that I've abused people. I know that I've taken my anger out on people, and I don't feel good about that. And it's not that I can like go back and undo that. It's that moving forward, like the next interaction that I have could be a little less angry, could be a little more conscious, could be a little more empathic and aware that this person is probably human too. They probably have a lot of shit they're going through, and maybe just remember that before I speak. Like maybe respond instead of react. Something like that.
You've been through a hell of a lot with me. You know, I was young when I had you.
Well, you always called me your little buddy, and yeah,
Well, you were. It was you and me.
Was it you? Tell a story. You had me the day after you turned 21.
I did. I
Right?
spent my 21st birthday in labor.
So by the time I was 5 and a half, which is when Tony came along, you were 26 and a half, 27. Like
Yep.
that's still so fucking young.
Yep.
And then you had Tony, and then Holly like a year later.
Yep.
Like 13 months or whatever it was, 14 months, and like 16 months maybe. But then like from that position, like you had 3 little kids and you were like 28 years old. You were a kid.
I was a kid.
And you were a kid with no like understanding of how to be like a responsible adult. who are still fighting through trauma and patterns and abuse.
That's right.
So when we can look at that with like that kind of a lens, goddamn, like you can take some like weight off of your shoulders. I know it's not always easy to see it that way, but for fuck's sake, Mom, like you've been like mushed into like dirt and then like mushed even further and then shit on top of and then letting that harden and then put cement on top of that motherfucker. So it's like digging out these fucking layers for you. And I can see how crusty and fucked up and horrible some of those sticky points are. And I don't love seeing you go through that, but I love knowing that you're working on it and you're not going to let it sink you, because if you did, then it would sink us. Like,
Facts.
we need our parents to somehow, or at least our mom, and maybe one day our dad, who knows, but we need our mom and one of our parents to like own what happened and then like do some kind of work to show that like we're not fucking alone still in this motherfucker. So, and you're doing that, but here especially talking about it. So fucking remember that.
I do remember that, but I shouldn't say but.
Stop
You
saying
said
but.
something that actually made me, you said you know who you are, or get back to knowing who you are.
Yeah, well, to be quite honest, like I didn't know myself so recent as like 2 to 3 years ago when the tornado hit my gym here, and I had to really peel back the onion and understand, like, why did I even start this gym?
Right.
I started this gym because Tony had 6 kettlebells and a bunch of equipment that he bought,
I
that
know.
he was getting himself into shape with.
I know.
And I decided, okay, well, I'm not going to sell that because it's my brother's. I don't know how to use it, so I'm going to learn. And that learning of that, guess what happened? When I started to take care of myself and learn more about nutrition and like better my body, I had one guy I used to play basketball with every morning. He'd only loan me like 6 weeks. And within that, and this was right after we lost Tony, because it's when I went right back to Total Body Fitness in
Right,
Lansdale.
right. I forgot,
Within 6
yeah.
weeks, I met this guy. And I went back to the gym within a month, 6 weeks of losing Tony, because I needed the outlet.
Right.
This guy comes up to me 6 weeks after I started working out and like working on nutrition, and he's like, hey man, you're not so fucking angry. Like, what are you doing? And I looked at him, I was like, what do you mean? And like fucking angry. And he's like, yeah, dude, like you've lost some weight. Like you seem like nicer. You're easier to talk to. And I was like, I've been working out and like doing my nutrition. And then when I thought about it, I was changing my chemistry. I was taking control of the insides of my body. And by doing that and taking control there of something that I could, it was manifesting in different behaviors and different presentation.
You were feeling better.
I was feeling better, but I didn't know why. And I became conscious of why. And then I started to really double down on, okay, I'm going to learn about nutrition and I'm going to like do this kettlebell thing. Well, I needed all of that, the permutation of rebuilding myself and learning about that to rebuild myself. But the only reason I really did that was to make Tony proud. I wanted to make him proud. I wanted to use his equipment and I wanted to help people get better. And that's what it led to here. But I didn't start the gym because I wanted to. I didn't play football because I wanted to. And that's as recent as 2 years ago. So like,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah,
You're here, right?
yeah.
Because you want to be here.
Now,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. I mean, here in this talking.
Well,
Yeah.
now I believe who I am and what I'm supposed to do is to be strong enough, but because I was weak, I had to rebuild. So I know the way from being all the way weak to all the way strong, but strong of mind, to be able to say to people, yo, I know what it feels like, and I know what it took to go from there to here, and there is a path, and you can follow it. You don't have to follow mine, but you don't have to stay in that same pattern, and you can get out of it. And so that has been the like, whoa for me, and bringing that full circle and being able to realize that like, sure, I got started for like trying to make my brother and my family and everybody else proud. But in the result of doing that is I am proud of myself. I know how far I have fucking come, so far that I want to share that.
Worlds
That I
away.
want everybody to see it, right? I'm crying and all this shit. You can't fake this shit, but
it's also like, I don't want to just show off. Like, I couldn't get in front of a fucking camera if it wasn't real, if I didn't mean it. And so from that position, now we have a baseline and something to stand on that's like true and sturdy, and we can build from there. And that's what I learned. And so Tony, I made him proud. And through making him proud and you guys, I found me. I know who I am. I am supposed to change the way the world is done. All the way those people fucking do that same shit, that's a pattern, like a movement pattern here at the gym, and that motherfucker can change. And I can show you how.
You've done it. What about you, baby doll? Which way did you go after we lost Tony? You and I didn't talk a lot about Tony after you went away to school. Mm-hmm. And I get the feeling you did that because you needed to be away. Was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to be asked about Tony.
Okay.
I didn't want to be looked at as the girl who lost her brother to suicide. I didn't want to be labeled. And I didn't want to be asked every day. I just wanted to be left the fuck alone. So I left. I went to school. Didn't do great, but I was away and I was able to not do what I wanted to do, but feel like I could. I started working 2 jobs, going to school. You know, just I needed space and I didn't have it.
I think we all needed space.
Yeah. I mean, it was...
Do you know who you are?
Not really. I know that I'm my son's mother. I know that I do things for them because I chose to have them. But no. Do I want to know? Do I know what I want to be when I grow up? No.
Well,
Do I know what, I'm in the same job I've been in for 16 years. I work a second job so both of my kids can have the same head start, if you want to call it that.
then you know who you are.
No, I'm Macklin
You're a
and
mommy.
Marshall's mom.
You're a
But that
mommy.
doesn't define me.
No, it doesn't define you. And
Because-
as the boys get older,
Me being John and Tony and Holly's mom doesn't define you. So
that's true. It doesn't.
but as of right now, in my life right now, that's the only important thing.
That's how I felt when you guys were little.
I know. And I get that from you.
Okay.
And as they get older and they start my kid's 7 and he is
He's a teenager.
going on 17. Okay. So Macklin will find himself very, very soon. And Marshall's not far behind him. I'll need to figure out, what I want to be when I grow up. But as in the moment, I'm okay with who I am and what I am for my kids.
I'm really proud to hear you say that. The kids are the most important thing forever.
Well, yeah, but as they, I don't. Well,
Look, you guys grew up, you diverged, you come back, you diverged, but we're still a family.
Yeah, we are.
Okay? We've said this all our lives. We're all we have, right? Just our little family. We've broken away from the glacier. We're the iceberg floating down the ocean, okay? We have to build a foundation for our little family that's rock solid. I don't want a foundation built on lies and secrets and deception. We have to do this. I know I've said it a million times today. It's so important to me. I don't want you to be my age, sitting here saying, who the hell am I?
well, we're not going to be because you started that ice pick of breaking off that glacier.
Or the iceberg.
Do you know what I mean? Like you already started to lay the foundation. Now we're all here to make it stronger. You started it. I need you to understand that.
I do understand that.
It was you. And while you weren't perfect and you didn't do things perfectly in your mind, because John's mind is different, he grew up with you. I, again,
Yeah, we were
was the
babies
baby.
together.
So
Yeah.
I didn't see all the extra, right? Rainbows, sunshines over here, Holly. But you started that. And while you and John, I think, have more trauma than I do because you shielded me from it a lot, I'm able to say, fuck you. I don't care what you think.
I want to be able to do that when I
But
grow
you
up.
started, you're the one who told me I could do that without telling me.
You can. You should.
Correct.
You too.
Well, and why do you think I'm sitting here in my gym talking with you both about all of this fucked up shit that we went through to, what, like, for my fucking health? Like, yeah, that feels good. No, like, okay,
It
yeah,
will
yes, it's for
feel good.
myself to unpack and feel good, but I don't want to just sit here and talk into the fucking wind just to feel fucking better.
No.
Like,
In order to move forward,
yeah, absolutely.
we have to put this shit to rest.
Well, I think a big part of it is, like, yes, unearthing some of it, having some of these conversations out in
And a
public.
lot of this, I've never talked about. I need to get this out.
Okay. Well, this is your mic. What do you need? Anything else you need to say today here?
No, not today. I'm just talking about as we go on.
All right.
All of this, I have to do this,
Yeah.
but I don't know why. I don't have a
Because
specific reason.
you've always let us express ourselves, tell you things, curse at you, vent
Wait, you curse at me?
all the time.
Not really at you.
Damn.
Just
What?
to
Yeah,
you.
vent. Right, vent. You've always been our person, our outlet. We might have taken things out on you. Knowing as a mom now, I know how that feels.
Yes, but
sorry.
No, don't be
But
sorry. It shit happens.
You let us be ourselves.
Yes.
This is your chance to be yourself.
And you don't know what that means, do you?
I have no idea what that means.
Well, good, because because you went left and broke the wheel, I was able to get here to where I am now. You just both heard me. I fucking know who I am, and all that means is that I have a path that I can offer you both that you can walk down to figure it the fuck out for yourselves. There's a few doors we're going. One of them is talking. One of them is physically working through the traumas. There are things stuck in your body that your body remembers that you react to, not even consciously.
Mm-hmm.
Physical exercise, yoga, movement, those kinds of things help, because when you move, they unearth those things. You are then sort of forced to feel them and deal with them, and then understand logically and put logic, what am I feeling? What is going on in my body? And then you start to kind of dissect it. And that's when you talk about it. And some people going in the physical route, going in the talking route, it doesn't work because they're maybe even crusted further than us, and they might need a medical intervention, and they might need some real, like, psychologist, psychiatrist, really, like, medication to open up that door to create that space to get new clarity, because we've been so bogged down and stuck in the same pattern that we couldn't see anything. And then Holly needed space. She said it earlier. She just needed to get away to fucking breathe. You needed space to breathe. I needed space to breathe. And so I created one. We're sitting in it. And I believe it's some permutation of that for everybody, in that find out how to physically work through your body stuff. So know your body, know yourself, know how you emotionally react to things. Or if you don't, that's where you start. And that's okay, because you don't know. And then why are you here? Why do you get up every morning? Is it just to be a mom? I think Holly just said, that's why I get up now, to be a mom, but probably not for the rest of my life. So she has some discovering to do, just like most people do.
Yep.
So it's know yourself, right? Know your body, know your purpose. And if you don't, then we have somewhere to start. We have something to focus on and work on to move you out of that space and into a better one.
I have no idea who I am.
Okay, well, so you don't know yourself. You don't really know your body. And your purpose used to be to take care of your kids, but, like, your kids are kind of taking care of themselves and starting to grow up and learn things.
We're kind of old.
We're doing, but we're still
I know.
her
Did
kids.
you ever think you'd be this old?
No, I still think I'm like 20. But then I remember I'm not.
Honestly, I feel like I'm 17 mentally. Like I think so much sharper and quicker, and I'm able to move at such a different pace mentally. And a big part of it, I look back when we lost Tony, I was 25. But mentally, that's where my life started. And so, like,
me too.
I kind of feel like the first 25 years of my life and maybe the first 19 of yours, to me, they don't even fucking count. So I want to live to be 125. So I think that's a big part of my, I just rebuilt my health. I need to fucking live another 100 years.
You never know.
Those first 25, I don't fucking want those motherfuckers.
Oh, look, I don't want the first 60. Bite me.
So you could probably have another 60 in my eyes. So, like, start doing
All
this.
right.
But
So
like,
mentally, Mom, you're 2 going on 3 then?
Something
yeah,
like that.
or
Okay.
2 going on 300.
Not mentally, but maybe emotionally.
That's fine.
All right, so
We'll start there.
So that's where you are.
I
and-
laugh when Macklin does this. Boop, with his little lip.
I started I was 27. So my mom was 27 when she had me, and I'm
Yes.
her baby.
Yes.
Right.
I had my first baby when I was 27 with Macklin. And I always wanted 3 kids because my mom had 3 kids. And I saw how I don't know. And then you had one and you're like, wow, this went pretty well, right? Granted, I had some complications, told me I couldn't have another baby. So when I got pregnant with Marshall, I was scared to tell anybody because I thought I was going to lose my baby.
Who'd you tell first?
Well, Phil. Phil knew.
Who else did you tell first?
And between you two, I told John first.
Yeah, I know that.
And then I told Mom.
And
But
I know
She
why.
was afraid to tell because
Yeah.
she was afraid, right?
Yeah.
I was scared, just in general, just
Right.
because. Anyway, so I had, Marshall. I was 30, and
You old.
I think that's when I started. The first 30 years. Well, I'm gonna say Macklin because Macklin matters. 27.
27.
So first 27 years, I could do without.
Well, let's talk about everything that happened. I think that what we have to say, what we're going through, what we're trying to accomplish, hopefully will resonate with someone.
It will.
Absolutely. I just learned today, even just sitting here, like we're on the same path at different kind of points of the path.
Right, absolutely.
Like, it seems in a lot of ways, like maybe some way, like I've done a lot of like this therapeutic kind of physical, emotional work to like, I'm like further ahead that way. Not that I'm better, it's not any of that. It's just that I've done different work.
Right, you've
right,
gone a
like
different- right,
choices.
exactly.
But I believe we'll all benefit from those choices. Just like I'll learn if I
You're
ever
an
have a kid, or
individual.
just like how to be a better parent through Holly. She went through that route through you, right? And now I'm learning full circle through you. One of the things you said to me recently that I really loved, and I want people to understand this before we get out of here today. You came to me and you said, John, I feel like I have a cosmic debt to pay.
A massive cosmic debt.
Like losing Tony and then all these other things.
Yes, I do.
So you're not one of these people who are like 60 years old and who's like, oh, you know what? Fuck it. The kids will figure it out. Because quite frankly, I think that's the most like insidious thing people can do to kids is like not live out their dreams and not chase their biggest selves themselves and show them how to do it, but then turn around and say, well, you're a fucking piece of shit because you didn't amount to what you could have. The people in front of you didn't fucking show you. So I think it's important for parents to go after your dreams. Parents to be like, find out who you are. And I know a lot of you will probably find yourselves in similar situations like my mom and my sister. I made a choice at 16 years old to not have kids until I was able to support them, because I didn't want to bring a kid into a situation like I was kind of brought into. I felt shotgunned in, and it was like, whoa, like I don't know how I could fucking do that to a kid. And so
You've made
didn't.
a conscious choice, John, which is the most responsible thing you can do.
You know,
Just as Holly made a conscious choice to have children. She obviously wanted to be a parent all your life, right? A mommy?
I wanted to be a mom,
Okay.
but I was, when I had Macklin, I was not ready financially, mentally, any of that.
Right.
But now, 2 years after, I had to have a hysterectomy, and I wouldn't be able to have kids when I was ready.
That's
So
right.
I don't change.
You were awfully young for that.
Yeah, and I don't change the path that I was given or chose or whatever you want to call it. I have children and I had them and I unfortunately can't have any more, and that's fine, but I wouldn't change it.
I wouldn't change it either.
That door's closed on that path, and now it's just to the next part. And
Yep, now it's making them
But the funny
cutest.
thing is, I shouldn't say this, but I actually didn't want to be a mom. I thought I'd be a terrible mother.
You also didn't want to be a grandmom
That's true. I didn't.
until you saw Macklin.
I know.
He did it for you
And now they kill me every day.
every day.
Every day.
yeah.
But it's true. I did not want to be a mother. I thought I'd be a terrible mother. And
I didn't think
I
I-
now
yeah,
wonder if
I
it's
didn't-
because I didn't really have a mother.
Probably.
You know what I
mean, I didn't think I'd be a good mother either.
Why?
But because I didn't want my kids to hurt. I didn't want
Oh, honey,
to do
that's going to happen
something-
no matter how
I
good
know,
of a mommy
but this
you
is
are.
my thought process. So I didn't wake up and be like, oh, I want to be a mom. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I thought I was supposed to
Oh, shit,
get
that's what I
married,
did.
have kids, buy the house,
Yep.
white picket fence.
Yep.
Now I've done everything ass backwards. I had the kids. I got the house.
But wait,
And I still don't have the marriage.
but you're happy, right?
I'm very happy.
Okay.
I am. I got a good one. And maybe, it's not always,
Yeah, you did.
let's get
You did.
married
Well,
and then have kids and that. No, like I've figured this man out over the last 10 years. And
you do it your way.
it's right. And we couldn't be happier. So everybody has a different path, way of doing things. And just that's how life happened for me. I had my babies first.
Absolutely. If I asked you both, like, Holly, I want you to add up, give me an equation that adds up to the number 9. What would you choose?
4 + 5.
What would you choose, Mom?
3, 3, 3.
I would go 7 + 2. But they're all 9, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Different ways to get to the same place.
Correct.
And that metaphor has been really powerful. And I, when I share that with clients and when I just, even myself, like, what's your 9? Because it's not the same as mine, and that's okay. And so let's figure out like how to add up to your equation, what works for you, and let's peel back the things that you don't actually want to do. And that comes with, really, if we're coming full circle, you made a decision to not do what your family did. You made a
I
decision
did.
to leave Dad.
I did.
And it was a conscious decision.
Yes, it was.
And from that conscious decision, now we can entertain and build new beliefs. We can find new evidence to be this new person because now we can see what happened over there and we have evidence to see, oh yeah, that's true. However, I see that there's other people that don't act that way. What's the difference? And you can start like compiling evidence and entertaining different kinds of thoughts and maybe like, well, I used to believe I was a piece of shit, but maybe I'm less of a piece of a shit than I thought I was. That's absolutely fascinating because then there's a lifting and a letting go and a kind of relaxation in your nervous system. And from that place, that gives us that mental space to think clearer. And then really it's those kinds of things. Entertaining new beliefs. What people told you were supposed to be when you grew up, that's not true. It's not actually true unless you do the actions and do it. But if I sat down and asked you, like, well, my mom said I was supposed to be this, and so I was. Is that what you wanted to be? Is it true that's who you were supposed to be? Well, that's who she told me I was supposed to be. Is that true that's who you wanted to be? Well, no, it's not.
I always wanted you to be your individual selves.
Well, you did that by showing us how to be individual, even if you didn't have the words. So you decided, you made the actions,
Yes.
and we followed suit to where now I've come full circle and you guys are following suit, and we're coming full circle in a lot of ways together to be able to make the best of that and change our belief system about what we see and who we thought we were. And in reality, pass that on for Macklin and Marshall and anybody else that comes in our family that like we want to show like, hey man, you might have had some hard things that you went through. It doesn't define you. It's not who you are. It's what happened. And you can change your story if you want. You can write a new one. So on that note, do you guys have any final sign-off thoughts?
I'm really happy with today's talk.
We're ending in a good space here. Is there anything else you'd like to get out and that you'd like anybody else to know?
There's plenty to talk about
Plenty to
as
come?
time goes on, but we're talking about essentially estrangement, family estrangement.
Well, let's do this. One thing. What's one final nugget you think people should take out of today's conversation that you hope they took out of it?
Without communication, you're dead in the water.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
I've said that all my life. I believe it with all my heart.
Yeah.
If we don't communicate with each other, we're dead in the water.
I agree.
And this is where it starts. It's not always going to be pretty. You know, we have some anger that we all need to express.
Express and dissipate.
Right. That we haven't ever broached before.
Agreed.
And I think by doing this, by getting it all out, by talking about it, that's the only way we can move through what we've been through.
Make some kind of sense of it.
Exactly. It's like the lotus flower. It has to come up through the dirt.
That's a big ass nugget, Mom.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Holly, is there anything that you think that people should take out of today that you really hope?
No, this was more Mom.
More mom
So
today?
I want them to focus on her nugget, which turned into a 20-piece.
Cool. So, on that final note, everybody, communication. Make sure that we're working on that in some form.
And
Otherwise,
talk to us.
And talk to us. Let us know in the comments below if you like this conversation, if you'd like to hear more of these things. If there was something that helped you, please let us know. If there's something you'd like to see more of, and if there's something you didn't like, totally, we want to know it all.
And questions.
And any questions, because we'll answer those as we move forward. Is that it, guys?
that's it.
Thank you for listening to our show. If you're interested in how we've gotten this far, I've put together a small guide that has a 3-step process at no cost. You can get that at www.iamnotokay.com/truth. www.iamnotokay.com/truth. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you on the inside. Be well.